What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys the best base locations for Ark Survival Ascended. I'm going to give you guys a list of the pros and the cons for each location. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Coming in at number 1, we have the obelisks. Now I know a lot of people dislike when tribes build here, but overall they are pretty decent base locations. You might be wondering to yourself, can this get me dev wiped? Be absolutely sure to read the guidelines so that it does not say no building on the obelisk. You can do it in the first Ark, so I assume you can do it in the second Ark, and the reason that I assume you can do it is because you could do the same thing you could do at an obelisk that you could do in a supply crate. So I don't really see why you would get dev wiped, but be sure to read the rules. If you are going to pick one, blue obelisk is going to be the best option, as they are going to have to walk their soakers a pretty far distance up that hill, and if you have plenty of turret coverage around the sides, it's going to be a very difficult raid, especially if you guys are active, and there's plenty of metal and different resources around blue obelisk. Really, the only con I can think of is getting your tames up there, but other than that, really good base location to keep in mind. Just be sure to read the guidelines. Coming in at number 2, we have Wedding Cake Mountain. Now this is going to be absolutely covered in trees, but I went ahead and cleared that out so that you guys could see this spot. If you put your main base right up on top with plenty turret towers around the edges, you're going to be set. You're close to plenty of resources. The only resource you might have to travel for is oil. You're right next to green obelisk, so you can run boss fights really easily. The only con I can think of is the fact that you are out in the open, so plenty of people will know where you're built. But besides that, definitely a base location to keep in mind. Coming in at number 3, we have Carno Island. Now you can put your main base right up there in the middle with turret towers around the edges. The one thing you want to be sure of is you don't block the entrance to that cave, because there is an artifact down in there and that will risk you getting dev wiped. So be sure to build away from that, but in my personal opinion, you can still take up the majority of this island and have a secure base location. One tip to keep in mind is to put plenty of underwater homing mines around the part of the water that is going to be closest to your base, but be sure to keep that entrance open so that people can get the artifact in there, because I'm almost positive that can get you dev wiped in the game, but it is honestly a base location to keep in mind. Coming in at number 4, we have this snow mountain across from blue obelisk. This is going to be a really good base location, as you can put your main base right up on the top there with plenty of turret towers and pillboxes and spam scattered around the edges. The people trying to raid you will have to come from the bottom, walking their soakers up, so if you're actively checking tribe log, you should easily be able to see them coming from a mile away. The only con of this location is getting your tames up there and going and getting resources is going to be kind of an annoyance, but other than that, really good base location to keep in mind. One thing you do want to be cautious of is Quetzals. Just be sure that you don't have an area where Quetzal could put some hatch frames on and just cheese its way up. For number 5, we have Herbivore Island. This is going to be a fought over base location on day 1, so if you want this spot, you're going to have to be sure that you are there within the first 10 minutes, as you can lock down this entire island with spam turret towers. You want to put your main base right there in the middle, and also something you want to be sure that you're putting down are underwater homing mines. These are going to be absolutely essential to blowing up turret rafts that are going to try to push you, so you're just going to want to scatter these bad boys everywhere just like this, but just have a crap load of them, making it impossible for you to raid. You can have turret towers all around the edges, your main base tucked in the middle there, turret towers on top. This is going to be a day 1 spot you're going to want to try to get. Coming in at number 6, we have this open area between these two mountains. I think this is going to be a pretty decent base location, as you can slap your main base right there in the middle, put turret towers around the edges, and then have plenty of spam scattered around. Clear some of those trees out around your base so that you can see people from even further away. You're next to pretty much any resource that you're gonna need. You can get your dinos, any dino here, fairly easily, making this a really good base location to keep in mind. Coming in at number 7, we have this base location right next to Carno Island. This is honestly a pretty decent location, as you can put your main base right down there in the middle. You have access to water, slap plenty of turret towers around the top ledges, as you guys see. There are 3 separate ways to walk through here, and they can come from the top. I'd be sure to spam all 3 of those little ravines with just all kinds of structures. You're gonna have to be sure that you lock down this entire thing with spam to make it as hard as possible to raid, but overall it's a pretty decent base location in my personal opinion. Coming in at number 8, we have the iceberg over in the snow. You guys want to be sure you're placing your own turret rafts and underwater homing mines around the edges to stop people with rafts trying to raid you, as that is the main way they are going to try to raid you here. But you can place your main base right up on the top with a turret tower. You can put plenty of turrets around the edges and plenty of spam to stop those rafts. The only downfall is getting your dinos here, and getting resources is kind of difficult, but overall a base location to keep in mind. Coming in at number 9, we have this base location right next to the pillar with an explorer node. Now this is my suggestion for this spot. I would put my base up on the top of that mountain right there with turret towers around the edges. You can also place another separate base on top of that little pillar, making it very difficult for people to raid. If they're coming to raid your main base, you can have another little base on top of that pillar for a spawn point and just another turret tower. You could pretty much lock down that entire area. Overall, I think it's a good base location. You're next to a lot of resources you're going to need, so definitely keep this in mind. The next location on the list is this hillside right next to the water. I think you could put your main base right there near the top with plenty of turret towers covering the entire area. This is going to be covered in trees, so you will have to clear them out, place foundations in their place, and you will have this huge open area where you can see people coming from a mile away. You can get pretty much any dino up here. It is kind of a downfall because people can also get their soakers up here pretty easily, but if you build this right and you're an active tribe, you can lock down this whole area, having plenty of room. The last location on the list is this huge open area right next to South Zone 1 spawn. This has a list of pros and a list of cons, but before we get into that, I tried to steer away from locations that were in caves because of the difficulty of getting your tames in there and then never being able to get them out of the cave. Not only that, almost every cave on the island has artifacts in it, and if you block an artifact cave, you do risk getting dev wiped. If you do want to risk building there, just be sure to check the guidelines and see if it says that you can't build artifact caves. If it doesn't, then you can build artifact caves. I just wanted to give you guys a list of big open areas where you most definitely could build. But you can build this area, you place your main base right there in the middle, plenty of turret towers around the edges. You're next to pretty much any resource that you're gonna need, right next to Red Obelisk, where you can do boss fights super easily. The one thing you want to be very cautious of is Quetzals. When it comes to ledges, you want to make sure your base isn't so close to the ledge where somebody could cheese it with a Quetzal, but you can clear all that spam out with foundations, making this a huge open area for storage. Anything you need, this is a decent base location. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. I hope you guys used some of these base locations. I've used some of these base locations in the past with my tribe. Other than that, I am Prinky. Have a good day. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video.